Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Sustainable Culinary Stage, Plant Forward, California. And if you'll forgive me, give me just a second to pull up my information as I am running around between the different stages. It doesn't require physical running around, and yet it is still exhausting. So welcome to the Sustainable World Kitchen Culinary Stage, Plant Forward, California. Special thanks to Kellogg's Away From Home for sponsoring this session this week, which is going to be a real treat. We've got Susan Feniger of Border Grill Restaurants, Trucks, and Catering, and Socalo, which is a beachy California canteen and Mexican pub, and our very own Toni Sakaguchi, Executive Chef for the Strategic Initiatives Group, and the culinary mastermind behind all of the delicious food that we serve at our conferences. Susan and Toni are both going to be doing cooking variations on a Latin American classic, Picadillo. Before we jump in, just a note that you can double click any of the video screens to maximize your view. And we've also posted the recipes on our website if you'd like to follow along. Please also put your questions into the session chat on the right side of your screen, and we'll have some time to go through those with Susan and Toni once they're done cooking. Speaking of which, I think the stoves are already blazing. So Toni, let's get cooking.
All right. Hi. Well, welcome everyone. And so as Jackie mentioned, Susan and I are going to do variations on two different types of picadillo. And then we're going to also do variations on salsa verde. And hey, Susan, do you want to get started and kind of show everyone what you got going?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I just want you to know Toni started with me way when she was like 5 years old. Was that how old you were, Toni?
Yeah, that's about right.
But for sure I taught Toni every single thing that she knows. So unless she screws up today, and then I'm not going to take any responsibility for her. All right. So, and I also want to say, you know, Toni's going to look a lot better than me because she's in a nice fancy kitchen and I'm just here at home. So anyway, okay. So we're going to start with doing the picadillo. So I'm going to take you over to the stove here and well, here I go. Come on with me. All right, so what we have here, this is a very simple dish, but I think the twist on it that both Toni and I are going to do makes it really interesting. So what I did already this morning was caramelize my onions really well. This is ground beef that I'm using here. But honestly, you could do this with ground chicken, ground lamb. You know, Toni will show you a different version of it. So this is just the onions, ground beef, of course, salt, cracked black pepper. And then what makes this very interesting are the spices that go into it. This is a very typical dish that's served all over Latin America, Mexico. We do it in all different kinds of dishes. We used to do it, stuff it with roasted plantains when we turned that into an empanada. And the filling here, so you brown this, and once it's hot, we're going to add into it cumin, cinnamon, cloves. So now we're sort of adding the sweet and savory spices. So I'm going to just go ahead and add that in. I like lots of extra cumin in there because that really gives it the flavor. Then we're going to add cinnamon in there. So that gives you the sweetness. And I put a little bit of cloves in there already. So with spices, whenever you add in the spices, you want to make sure they cook a little bit in the oil first, but you don't want to burn them. So it can't be too high a heat. Then I'm going to take in there, add green olives, which gives it that sort of tang. So now we've got sweetness and tang, a little bit of raisins. So I'm going to add those raisins in there, again, adding sweetness. And a little bit of brown sugar. So this now gives us this base that I think is really interesting. It's sweet, it's savory. I would use this, you could use it like layered in a moussaka, in a lasagna, in an empanada. And it's, you want to make sure you're always tasting, of course. So while this is cooking, Toni, what are you doing over there?
Okay, so I'm doing, so I am using a plant-based chorizo crumble in mine. And so the chorizo, the meat mixture that I'm using is already highly seasoned. So I'm not adding any of the spices that you are. But basically, I started with a base of onions, and I had to start letting it start to brown. But I had a base of sauteed mushrooms with some onions in there. And then I added some radishes that were sauteed too and cooked those nice. So everything was kind of nicely caramelized. And then I added my plant-based chorizo crumbles. And I think the beauty of those is that they don't have all the fat that comes out of, typical like Mexican chorizo, but they're really nicely spiced. And then I'm going to do the same thing that you did. I'm kind of browning them a little bit. And then I'm going to add raisins too to add some sweetness. So I have golden raisins. And I'm just going to add those in because it's a really nice foil to the chili and the spice in the chorizo. And then I have some olives and some green onions. And I'm just trying to get this. I want this to like just get a little more color. And it's almost
So Toni, on the chorizo, you had the similar spices, probably cumin and a little bit of chili, and maybe, you're certainly going to get plenty of sweetness from the raisins and the tang of the olives. So you can see, I mean, what I love about this is all this flavor profile from the spices and then the sweetness with the raisins and the tang of the olive, whether you do it as a vegan dish or whether you do it using protein or a meat base, is really makes this just a very interesting twist on this picadillo. Like, I love this. Like, I would use this and make a chili from it, Tone. You could do a chili from that too.
Mm-hmm.
You could use it for tacos. When we did it with plantains, we took whole plantanos and roasted them, and then took the plantain out and made it into a dough like you would for a tortilla, and flatten it and then stuff it with this picadillo. So the picadillo just gives you another layer of interesting sweet and savory, different than just the chorizo, the plant-based chorizo, or the beef would do. It just takes it a whole nother level, more interesting.
Yeah. No, I know. And, and if you were to look at the two mixtures, they look the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't say that one looks like it's plant-based. And I think, that's the goal. You want to have these flavorful plant-based options that, taste, if you're craving meat, at least you wouldn't miss it. Okay. And then, hey, Susan, let's talk about salsa verde.
All right. So I'm going to go back over here. Come on over. All right. So this, I have to say, this is one of my favorite combinations. This is salsa verde that we make with hoja santa. Now, I have a plant that was like this big, given to me by one of our sous chefs like 25 years ago, even after Toni. That tells you how old Toni is. So this is a leaf called hoja santa. It's so amazing. This plant grows wild all over Mexico. I have it now. It's taken over our backyard completely. I mean, these are all I cut them all this morning. It's amazing. Now, this leaf itself, if you taste it, it tastes almost like licorice or fennel. You can take this leaf and wrap fish in it, wrap mushrooms, anything in it. We're using it today to make this salsa verde as our base. So I'm taking the hoja santa. It's just so amazing. Isn't this amazing? This is why we're so lucky to live in California, because this grows wild all over our backyard. So I'm taking the hoja santa. Everything's just going to go directly in the blender. So I take the hoja santa. I take the garlic, right? So I've got hoja santa, garlic, fresh lime, parsley. Now, honestly, if you had chives or you had, whatever, you could use any herbs. The major herb, though, is hoja santa. Okay, so I'm taking this hoja santa. It's all going into the blender. And really, there's nothing very tricky about it. I'm just going to throw it all in here. I'm going to add lime juice into that, a little bit of fresh lime for the acidity to it. And then all I'm going to do is puree it with olive oil. Just add olive oil in there. Throw that all in the blender with the garlic. Throw my garlic in there. I won't bore you with blending it. But what I want you to do is see exactly the consistency that comes out. So you see this? This is just like amazing. It's a great color. I use this, for example, I use this as a dipping sauce. I want to just show you this. Can you guys see this? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a dipping sauce that I mixed with a little bit of mayonnaise. I use that for like artichoke, steamed artichoke, where I dip that in this aioli that's made with the salsa verde. I also use that on a piece of corn. Like if I wanted to do corn esquite, I would put the salsa verde with mayonnaise on the corn and sprinkle it with a little bit of cheese. So you could add more olive oil and more acid and turn it into a vinaigrette for a salad. You could use it as a marinade on skirt steak or portobello mushrooms. Just got an amazing flavor, very strong in licorice and fennel. And so it's just an incredible salsa verde. You could chop it up and do it as a chimichurri too.
Oh my God. It's got a great color. Cool. So I cheated and my salsa verde is already done. And so mine is based on, I used radish tops because I liked the flavor of sauteed radishes. So I have radishes in the picadillo, but also I figured I'd use the radish tops as part of the seasoning in the salsa verde. So mine is tomatillos, a few tomatillos, some radish tops, and then a little bit of cilantro, some chili, some lime, salt, and then a tiny bit of extra virgin olive oil in the end, just to give it a little bit of body and viscosity, but also smoothness. And I think the main thing on using the radish tops is that you got to taste them first, you know, and use them. It's like anything, right? Any sort of greens. You always taste them first. Make sure you choose the younger, tender ones because they tend to not be maybe as strong flavored or as bitter. And then, yeah, and you'll find that the radish tops will taste slightly different if they're from like the Easter egg radishes or breakfast radishes, or even like the typical red ones and stuff. So choose your radish tops carefully. Okay, so I'm also I wanted to talk about arepas because I'm gonna take my picadillo. You know, you talked about all sorts of things you can do with it, and I'm gonna put mine in an arepa, which is kind of like a masa cake, but it's not the same kind of masa as tortillas. So I'm going to add some, I have the flour. It's a little bit finer. It's basically a corn dough that's cooked and then dehydrated is typically how you'll find it now, but you could buy the corn dough itself originally. And then I have some queso fresco in here, a little bit of canola oil and a pinch of salt. And then I'm going to mix it together and then add in water just to kind of get it to come together as a dough. And in the end, it should look like these little balls here that I shaped. And you know what I think? The main thing on this is that the dough has to, it should not crack when you press on it. And then we're going to cook them on a griddle. It needs to sit for about 5 minutes just so everything could rehydrate before you cook it. But yeah, I'm going to cook them on a griddle. And so they look like little gorditas, kind of masa cakes. Okay.
So you know what, Toni, I wanted to ask you something about with the radish tops. Do you guys, because when I was up at the CIA, I don't know, a few years ago, I think you were doing something with carrot tops too. So you could do this salsa verde, couldn't you, with the carrot tops? That would be pretty delicious too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. You know, some sort of like nice leafy green, add a little bit of flavor, and you'd probably that would probably be a really interesting variation of that.
And the radish tops there, when you're doing that, it's did you say that it doesn't get it bitter, right? It isn't a bitterness, but you get a little bit of that.
Yeah, it has a little bit of bitterness, and that's why I was going to say, you know, taste them first, because some of them are much stronger flavored and they have more like a much stronger vegetal flavor. And whereas I think on the ones, the younger ones they tend to be more tender and have a nice grassy flavor and a little bit of bitterness. And they also taste that, you know, that kind of radishy zing that you get, you know, from radish, daikon. You'll also find that in the greens.
Yeah, it's great. I love the version of it. I mean, the salsa verde is sort of, in some ways, it's not that it's new, but it is sort of a new twist on things that I think before we didn't used to do as much. So when we used to do pestos and that. So this verde is sort of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So the next step that what we're doing is we're making this, it's like a plate that's got all different vegetables. Since we're here in California, I roasted squash, green beans, cauliflower with a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, a little broccolini there. And I'm just going to take, because in the Latin kitchen, what we do is take a mixture that is very similar to what's called naranja agria. And the way that we get that is using orange, grapefruit, and lime juice. So I'm just going to take a little bit of lime, grapefruit, and orange, put it onto our roasted vegetables. And these are still warm out of the oven. So I like to do the marinade that way. And then a little bit of olive oil in there. And so the whole concept here is we're going to have our salsa verde, our vegetables, and into that, I want to make sure it's nice and healthy. So I'm adding in a little bit of grain. So farro into there. And then this is the mixture that's going to go on top of our picadillo. So I already seasoned it pretty well, but I never think a little extra salt doesn't help everything. So we've got our vegetables ready to go there. We have our salsa verde ready to go. And look at those. Look at the arepas, Toni. Those look gorgeous.
Oh, cool.
All right. I'm glad. I think I taught Toni how to do arepas about 30 years ago, didn't I, Toni?
I'm getting older as we talk. A few more years.
I know. Was it 40 years ago?
Oh God.
All right.
Not quite 40.
So I think it's never enough for me to do one or two ingredients. So now I'm going to top. So we've got the sweetness and the savoriness in our picadillo. We've got our roasted vegetables with the farro, with the naranja agria, or the mixture of the grapefruit, lime juice, and orange juice. Now I'm going to top it with a salad that's with frisee and dandelion greens. So now that's going to add bitterness. So, I mean, one of the great things about, I think, cooking is that I like all those different flavor profiles in a dish. You know, it's never enough to have like one flavor. It's got to have all these different flavors. So I'm just going to dress this with a little bit of lemon and extra virgin olive oil, salt and pepper. And that's going to go on top of this whole dish, topped with a little bit of crispy quinoa.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. So when my crew complains about too many things and steps in a dish, I'm going to blame it on you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love taking responsibility for that.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stuff one of the arepas. I had I made a few in advance. It's a little easier when they're fresh, because the dough has kind of puffed up a little bit, so they're easier to slit. But basically, you take it, and I made a little slit in here, and then open it up like this, like a little Pac-Man. So you have a little envelope. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some of the picadillo inside. I have some shredded lettuce, some queso fresco, a few slices of radishes, and then a couple of slices of avocado. And and my tendency would be to go for some sort of pickled item, but there's in picadillo, you usually find a little bit of tartness. And so I found with that and the tartness of the salsa verde that I really didn't need to add that in. So I'm going to try to stuff. Are you making?
I am. I'm good. So I've got my salsa verde, right? It's going to go on my plate. I thought I'd do a nice big green plate on here. So salsa verde goes on the bottom layer there. And then I'm adding on the picadillo. So now we're adding in the sweetness into here from the raisins and the olives. That's going here. And then I'm going to take some of those vegetables. You know, I mean, I feel like we're so lucky being in California because there's so much amazing produce here. It's just incredible. So then I put that on top there. So I'm building my plate this way. And then I'm taking the bitterness between the frisee and the dandelion greens. And then I'm just topping it with a little bit of crispy quinoa, which is like one of my most favorite things to snack on. And that's adding texture to this whole dish. Gosh, that looks pretty good. I could almost eat that.
That looks delicious. Oh my goodness.
Doesn't that look good? Let me see. All right. Can you see that, Toni?
Yeah, that looks great. Okay, so I'll finish mine off. So I have my picadillo in here. I'm just going to do a tiny bit of the salsa in here. Make sure it gets coated. I'll do a little bit of lettuce just for, because I feel like it always needs some brightness and also the texture. A few shaved radishes. Wants to fall out. And then a little bit of queso. Okay. And then I have to scoop it onto a plate. Okay.
Oh, that looks so yummy. That looks so fabulous, Tone.
Okay, and there. Oops, sorry, Chad. Anyways, but so a couple of different variations on how to use picadillo, and there's multiple more, right? There's tons more ways to do this. Yeah,
I think you just use the salsa verde and you use the picadillo, sort of replacing any sauce for the salsa verde, and the picadillo any place that you might put either a chorizo or a ground meat or something, something like that. But it's just, I think it's in both of those items.
Yeah. Hey, Jackie.
Hello, love these chefs. We've got some time for question, and in case you can't see in the chat, everybody's basically drooling over both these versions of picadillo already. We've also got some people actually who have been brave and have hit that share audio and video button. So maybe David Viviano is in our queue. I wonder if David will be able to join us if he has a question or a comment for both of you. And sometimes this doesn't end up working out. So while we wait for David, or we'll see if David comes up, somebody was asking about the hoja santa, Susan. And you mentioned the flavor profile is licorice and fennel. If somebody can't find hoja santa, what would be a good substitute for that?
I think you could take like all the fennel leaves. You could take fennel leaves, the frond, and puree it. You probably would need to have in, more parsley, maybe chives. I wouldn't want to do basil because it'll take it too much in that direction. But the fennel fronds itself would be pretty strong in that. And then puree it. You might not get the same body, but you'd add olive oil into it. And I still think you would get a pretty delicious flavor from that would give you similar to hoja santa. But I would push everybody, figure out how to get an hoja santa plant. It's just a plant, because then you will never be able to get rid of it. It will take over the whole backyard.
That is great. We're going to try to bring some other people up. Maybe we'll try and see if Konstantinos is able to join us. But in the meantime, I have a further question about the hoja santa. Is it a seasonal plant, Susan? Does it grow year round, or is it something that sort of comes at a certain time of the year?
Well, in Los Angeles, it grows all year round. Literally, I wish we could take you there to show it. Probably, do you think we can? I don't know. We could try, but we'll try. We'll try to walk out there really quick while you're getting that done, because this is amazing to see. This plant is really this big, and here is one of them right now.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my gosh.
Huge. And see these little shoots? They shoot up under the ground, and then all of a sudden we have like 8 more of them. It's like, okay, how do we get rid of them? It's like the giant. It takes over your life. But I use it all the time. I use it for wrapping fish. I love it. Wrapping like salmon or something, or halibut, or black cod, and wrap it in aluminum foil and put it on the grill, because the hoja santa is delicate. So you can't just put it directly on the grill like you might banana leaves, or like you might collard greens. But then it cooks and steams, and you still get this, and you can eat it. It's just an amazing herb.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. And talking sort of along those lines, Toni, you were talking about the radish tops sometimes being a little bit bitter. If you do find that the radish tops that you have are bitter, what can you do in the salsa verde to kind of counter? Is it just about putting less of that and more of the other things, or how would you kind of counteract that?
I would probably go with a little bit less of it, taste them and see, and choose kind of like the leaves that are just have the best flavor. And so then choose some of those, and then maybe add in a little bit of cilantro, a little bit more cilantro. But it's like what Susan said with the hoja santa. If you were substituting, you just don't want the other flavors to become predominant. You still want the flavor of the radish tops and stuff. So I would choose carefully. Yeah.
Toni, one of the things I was thinking about, like with the fennel fronds, and probably even with the radish leaves, because like with the fennel fronds, you might not get the same body, because you just wouldn't. There's I think maybe more water in there through the fennel, but you could take in. Oftentimes, we'll take avocado, a little bit of that, and the oil in the avocado, but the body of the actual texture of the avocado gives you creaminess, so that would balance the bitterness some. And with the fennel fronds, it would actually give you a little bit more body, so you get that smooth, creamy texture if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea, because it's not usually avocado, it's not all that strongly flavored, and it would add some body and a nice richness to it for the bitterness. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Go on. On the hoja santa, it doesn't like cold. Just because they used to have one up at Greystone, and every winter, in the fall when it would be World of Flavors, we'd be scrambling because the plant wouldn't have much left on it.
All right, so protect it from the cold.
And I feel like it gets freezing down here. It gets to 38 degrees. That's freezing for us down here. It never kills that plant, though.
Oh, good.
That is awesome. Well, it looks like we are out of time, but thank you so much, Toni and Susan. It was nice to sort of virtually reunite the two of you together here. And thanks for the impromptu garden tour as well, Susan.
Absolutely.
So now we are going to, and thank you also, of course, to Kellogg's Away From Home, our session sponsor for this breakout. We're now going to the networking break. And as I mentioned on the main stage, you can use the tabs on the left of your screen to check out a range of ways to engage with everyone who is also attending today through our one-on-one networking, our virtual Meet the Author booth in our expo area with Walter Willett, where you can purchase his book, Eat, Drink, and Be Healthy, a Harvard Medical School Guide to Healthy Eating, and of course, our Expo tab to visit with our sponsors who are making it possible to offer this program tuition free. The booths will feature special presentations and videos, live demos, interactive small group discussions, and more. This slide shows you what is on deck for this week, or this slide will show you what is on deck for this week, and the sponsors featured, as well as their themed programming, will change week to week. So we hope you go in there and check it out. Don't forget that you're entered in a raffle for each activity you engage in. And if you attend and participate all 6 weeks, you'll have a chance to win free registration and travel to next year's Menus of Change conference. We'll be resuming programming on the stage tab in about 20 minutes for a look into healthy protective foods for our immune system. So enjoy networking and the expo until then. Thanks, everyone.